Kanchen Pyoki Shingam Na Cheres the Yemebe, Yudo Gombo Mengela, so the Sotuji. First of all, I would like to thank Kishilakdola because Kishilakdola has encouraged me and also given me an opportunity to participate in this wonderful seminar. And also, I must acknowledge Kishilakdola Denzela, who invited me several times to Emory and also organized several seminars with many experts. And that had really inspired me and encouraged me. So thank you very much. Tujiche Kishila. So I'm a Tibetan medical practitioner. And by listening to all these wonderful, you can say, talks or sharings, I really felt that definitely there are some good reasons from the Tibetan medical side to contribute in this wonderful discussion. So again, I would like to, request the organizer to participate, the Tibetan medical, you can say, practitioners, because now we have many wonderful new doctors who are fluent in language and also have a wonderful skill in the field of Tibetan medicine. Thank you. So my kind of talk is based on body, mind, and the three Nyepa. So before touching this particular subject, I would like to say that what is meant by body? And then in the same way, what is mind? Is it possible to form a body without mind? This is, I think, a very important question. And in Tibetan medical system, it says that it is impossible to have a fetus or body formed without the consciousness. And in the same way, three Nyepa. Nyepa means same as in Ayurveda, like three dosh. Or Nyepa itself is defined as harm, defect, defile, or sometimes guilt. Because Lung Chiba Begin Aka Nyepa, because Lung Chiba Begin temporarily helped us in the movement of our body, mind, and speech, giving hits to the body, and also it's very good for controlling the heat in the body in the form of cold element. So that's why Nyepa, the final result of Nyepa is destruction of the body. The result of Nyepa is giving a lot of sufferings in the body and mind in the form of different types of diseases. So that's why, medical text it's just one from the very beginning that don't trust Lung Tiva Begin. If you trust too much, then definitely they will give you a lot of, trouble in the form of diseases. Now, as I mentioned you that there are so many elements in the body. There are so many chemical, or even I'd say that there are so many material things in the form of atoms or molecules, or even like in a bigger way, we can see flesh, fat, and all those things. But what are the real composition of these things? It is clearly mentioned in Tibetan medical text that the body of a sentence being is composed of nothing but the five elements. In the same way, so-called the disease are nothing but disruption or imbalance of the bodily elements. And in the same way, the remedies, so-called remedies in the form of medicine or food, whatever, they are also the nature of 4 elements or 5 elements. So there is related connections. Why we take medicine, means medicines are made with 5 elements. That's why it helps us to correct the imbalance of the bodily elements. So, in short, I'll say that we must understand, we must really do research. As it is said in Tibetan medical texts, that the body is completely composed of 4 principal elements, excluding the space. It's not a material, but it gives us space. That's why we normally say Panch Mahabhut, or the 5 elements. But if I say our body is composed with 5 elements, means Geshe-la will definitely make a question that is it a space, a material, or the composition of body? So that's why it's clearly mentioned in the medical text that body is composed of the 4 elements, 4 principal elements or material elements, and then for them we need a room or space. That's what we call the space element. Total we have 5 elements. So if we don't know the interrelation between body, mind, and space on the basis of 5 elements, then there will be a lot of questions. Why you are giving medicine? What it composed of? What it will help in the body? Because disease is nothing but something that is lacking the body, or something that is, overproduction, or some you can find they are disrupted or imbalanced. So to correct these things, we need, if something is lacking, we need more of that type of elements to stimulate it. And if something is getting too much into the system, we need material which can bring it down to the normal level. Since we don't have much time, I'll just make it very quickly. So, tangbu pame kuta kyomeba namshe leda nyomo kigwene chunga sawa nyeto chabijo. As I mentioned that for a tiny embryo or the fetus, what are the composition in the very beginning is a very healthy sperm and ovum, or in other words, the reproductive seeds of father and the mother. Healthy, means the very basic seeds of the child is from the parents, and we really need a healthy seeds from the parents. So normally we talk about child care, and this child care normally we do it after the conception, but in Tibetan medicine it says that no. If you really want a child, then you must check the quality of the seeds of the parents. Then only we can determine that the parent can have a healthy child. So, tangbu pame kuta kyomeba means healthy semen and ovum of the parents. And this healthy semen and the ovum of the parents are also the nature of 4 elements. Consciousness of the being driven by karmas and delusive emotion. Consciousness during that period. There are so many consciousness desiring to have a kind of room for the conception, but it is directly connected by their past karma. I mean, the consciousness and also the parent should have at least some kind of link with the karma. And then delusive mind. There are 2 kind of nyomba same 2. Because the impure is, if it's supposed to be born as a male, then that consciousness in the very beginning feels a kind of like hatred to the father, male to the father, and feels jealousy to the father, and he thinks that the sperm is of his, and then he feels, you can say, more kind of attachment to the mother, vice versa. That's is important to have that kind of negative, even if it's a kind of delusion or negative thought, but we really need that during the period of the conception. And then we need assembling of the 5 elements from the father's seeds, mother's seeds, and the consciousness. And the most important thing is the consciousness is accompanied, or you can say consciousness is the nature of five elements, Shuanga. And that's what we call a very subtle kind of like elements. I think this is, in my understanding and my study, I felt really, really important. If the consciousness has the subtle kind of like element means, then the consciousness is very easy to have, like link or connection with the other materials, because all the things are composed of the five elements. And if there's no kind of quality, if there's no kind of property of the five elements with consciousness, then I think it's very difficult to talk about the connections, especially the wangza, you can say the nerves or neurons or brain, whatever, but still these are the principal things to be understood in Tibetan medicine. And when we talk about, you can say, the sensory organs and the objects and the sense in the sensory channel, I'll use this word, means what exactly is there in that particular sensory channel which has the quality, which has the power to see or to touch, to feel, and to smell, all these things, is not only this eye, for example, for seeing. If this eye is completely kind of like absolute or completely independent in seeing, means then why we cannot see when we are sleeping? So during that course of time, even everything exists intact, but why cannot we see when we are sleeping? Where that particular sense goes, So these things are, I think, very important. And to know this from the Tibetan medical point of view is very important to understand the different types of elements. And then also, we're talking about, I'll just make a little introduction about the heart, the importance of heart according to Tibetan medicine. Because our heart is like a lotus flower with 8 petals. So all these, you can say, in this particular heart, this is what mentioned in the medical text. Yin is the heart. Heart is the kind of like king of all the internal organs, because it is the base of consciousness. It is the base of life. And so that's why I think it's very important, even though the brain is very important, but in Tibetan medical system, it is just mentioned that the brain is, or you can say the nerves or the brain are more concerned about the sensory organs. And heart as a base of the sensory channels and base of the memory and base of the life, it is, we can say, if something goes wrong with the heart, definitely we will have very strange type of symptoms, which the Tibetan doctors knows very clearly. Like I can say that in the just in the heart, in front of the heart, you have, in front of the heart, what you have is the sense of air, and which is, according to the heart, is the east direction, and normally it is black in color. So you might feel strange that how you know all these things and how can you prove? While we are sleeping, in the dream, we say that I met a person with a black kind of coat, and he was and he was coming from the east direction. How can we prove this in the dream? So these are the, you can say, conditions based or connected to elements that we can at least feel in even the directions, the colors in the dream. And then the right side, which is south of the heart, sense of I, and there you can find the Mikin number show means the sense of I. And it is red in color. And then upper part of the heart, you can say sense of body, green in color. And lower side, you can find sense of mind, blue in color. Like this way, you have this sixth sense, has its size or location, directions, and colors in the heart. So these things, I think, is very important to understand. And otherwise, we must prove that how can we understand the direction while we're sleeping? How can we understand the different colors while we're sleeping? Unless I get an answer for that, I'll definitely stick with this. Now the Negiku. The question is, what is the basic cause of disease or suffering? And it says that there are two, Rimekyu, Nyevekyu, Kevarekyu and Nyevekyu. And every disease has a cause and effect with different symptoms. Like if somebody has a headache today, as a doctor, I'll say you have eaten this or that. This is the very approximate kind of like explanation. But if you go detail to that, then definitely the person has done some bad karma. Accordingly, he got this result. And then I have to explain, you have done this or that karma. Because of that, you got a headache. And these things is impossible for a Tibetan doctor to explain. And even for detail, each and every cause and effect is very difficult for every, you can say, every person, even like enlightened persons, it is mentioned there, it's difficult to explain each and every cause and effect of these things. But still, the remote cause, as I mentioned, is self-grasping ignorance, which is common to Buddhism and Tibetan medicine. And it is said that due to our ignorance, we do a lot of things which are not proper. Or in other words, I'll say, we make a lot of non-virtuous acts. We make a lot of mistakes, physically, mentally, verbally, because of the ignorance or not knowing. And as a result, we get a lot of problems. And then with that ignorance, then it comes to the specific cause. That is what we call three mental poisons. That is desire, attachment, or hatred, anger, or close-mindedness. So it is clearly mentioned that Lord Buddha was the supreme physician, medical person, but his specialty is even he can treat the disease of mind, means hatred, anger, and close-mindedness. And from this stage, hatred, anger, close-minded, you have the result of having what we call lung chiba beken, means the three nyepas or defects, which temporarily help us, but finally the effect of these things are destroying the whole system. And the first one is called lung. The real meaning, exact meaning of lung is mobile, movement. Lung means movement. So the movement what we have in our body, mind, and speech, is lung. So I think it's very important to know the characteristic of these particular things, because if you use other words instead of movement or lightness of the movement, means then it loses the quality of the characteristic. And then you will not really understand the exact effect of that particular object. The Nyepa. So, in short, I'll say that any movement that we have in our body, mind, and speech is from lung. Lung means movement. And even in Ayurveda, they have this Vata, Pitta, Kapha, Tridosh. Va means movement. Chal. So this way, whenever we talk about lung, means there's a movement. And yesterday, I think I've heard of waves and all those things. Wave or movement or transformation or anything that has a movement, even if it is small, you can say atom or our body. I'll definitely say this lung will not separate from its own kind of characteristic. That's why the word lung itself means movement. And in some texts in our Tibetan medical commentary, it mentions that force. Force can be also used. Now, there are 10 different types of lung in our body. So, basic, you can say, lung, or you can say basic origin of the lung is what we call Sokjin lung, life-size standing lung, or the subtle lung that we have with consciousness. So when the very beginning of combination of semen and ovum, now the question is, what is that particular movement which chants the ovum and sperm? And then second question is, how the fetus develops for more than 9 months. What is the basic cause of that movement? I'm not concerned about the seeds, but what exactly the element is there which moves, which develops the fetus for 9 months? So, according to Tibetan medicine, it is nothing but lung. Songjin lung. And Songjin lung comes from the Kunshi Namshi, the basic intermediate, consciousness. It comes from there. So it's very important. And then this Songjin lung is the base of all the movement or all types of lung. Roughly we have 10 different types of lung, which are the 5 basic lungs and the 5 limbed lungs. And you can find here, for example, the Songjin lung, it sits in the crown of head and then it goes down, it moves down, and then swallowing, inhalation, all this are taken care by Songjin lung, especially Sem Zimberje, means it withholds the consciousness. Like we say in the central channel or Uma, so the Uma, which is so kind of like fine, clear, transparent, in which you have the consciousness, the basic consciousness, which is supported by the purest of the pure lung, that is what we call Songjin lung. And this particular Songjin lung is the mother of all the lungs, or in other words, I'll say, all the movements, whether it's voluntary or involuntary, but in the body, mind, and speech, whether it's a wave or whether it's a vibration, whether it's an electrical movement, whatever the movement is because of so all these kind of like different types of movements is just the characteristic of Songzhi Lung. And then from there you have ascending Lung. Ascending Lung means you can find Lung, there are a lot of different types of movements in our body. But some movements you can find it ascends up. Some it descends. And then some, what we call diffuse or pervasive. So all these different types of Lung, movements in the body, I'll say the movement or the Lung, because they are kind of like connection with different types of elements. For example, say, life-sustaining Lung is called earth, like connected Lung. And then ascending Lung is a Lung which is connected with air, pervasive Lung that is connected with space, fire accompanying Lung which is accompanied with fire, and descending Lung which is connected with water. For example, descending Lung, it's a Lung, it's a movement, but you can find the movement, it's just going downward. So how can we say that Lung, some type of Lung that moves downward? Because it has a connection with the water. And you will never see the water, instead of falling down, it's just going upward. Never see that. So this way, like fire, has its kind of flame always going up. You'll never see it's going down until you make it technically some kind of varies. So this way, it's very important to understand different types of Lung and their kind of like connection with different types of elements. Now, it's very important to know the characteristics of the three Nyepas. Lung is saying means like what is Lung? What is the characteristic of Lung? This is, I think, a big question. You can't say this is Lung because it's air, it moves the tree and national flag. That's not enough. So to know what exactly Lung is, we have to understand Lung is saying the characteristic is like rough, light, cold, subtle, hot, and mobile. Rough in the sense, when you have lung disease, it makes everything rough, irritable. And then, like whiteness or the lightness in the mind, lightness in the body, and then feel cold and hot, like stiffness in the joints. Normally we say, I have a muscle tension. My question is, from where the tension comes from? I have a stiff neck. From where this stiffness comes from? In the same way, I have a dizziness. From where this movement, dizziness comes from? And even during that period of time, you can have haziness, dullness in the sensory organs. It's just practical, like haziness, double vision, and dryness in mouth, ringing in the ear, and then sometimes you have problems with smelling. All these things comes from the different characteristic of a different, you can say, Nyepa. And so far, you can say that a person who has really too high lung disease will have a dry skin, And movement means the person is very restless, hyper, very restless, very talkative, and then the person will not be stable in one place. This is what we can understand from the patients, See, some patients we can say, oh, that person used to be very silent and very quiet, and you can say, very relaxed person. Now see, he has changed his behavior. Like he's become very talkative. Now the question is why? He's become very restless. Why? Like this way, the movement, which is the characteristic of lung, when it increases too much, then we can get the abnormal movements in the form of symptoms. Okay. So what is lung means, Tibetan doctor will definitely say rough, light, cold, subtle, hot, and mobile. And Tibet saying Tiba means, little meaning of Tiba is inflammation, burning, or the heat. Tiba, like pitta. So we need this. We need Tiba, even though it's a Nyepa, because Tiba is slightly oily, sharp, or fast. Fast in action, like a fire can burn things very fast in comparison to water. If you soak paper in a water and then just have the paper near to the fire, means immediately you'll see that fire burns faster than the water. That's why. And then hot and light, mild, odorous, and purging and moist. So it is said in our Tibetan medical text that without anger, a delusive mind, it is impossible to have Tiba. And without Tiba, it is impossible to have any type of fever-related disease. So you can see the different characteristic of this Tiba, which is not same as lung. Now then you have a complete kind of like different characteristic, which is Bekin. Bekin saying you know now, Bekin has its basic seat in the brain. This is, I think, very important from the Tibetan medical point of view. So it's oily, it's cool, heavy, blunt, slow, smooth, stable, sticky. So you can see when Bekin increases too much in our system, then gradually we lose our movement. That is what we call lethargy, laziness. And then oily, things, whatever you vomit or even in the feces you'll find is a bit oily. And the body become, you can say, swollen and also oily. And most important thing is you feel heaviness in the body, And then stable means is different from, is opposite to the mobile characteristic of lung. So that way stable means a person who is affected by Bekin will have a very less movement. Even the person normally is a very restless person, but when he is affected by Bekin, he will be a very lazy person, and he will be a very stable means kind of like sitting in one place and a very less movement, very slow, and even his mind become very slow. And in the same way, from the heaviness and the slow, you can find the dullness in the mind. So there's little contradiction. In Tibetan medicine, medical system say that the Bekin or the ignorance lies in brain. So that's why whenever we have a problem in understanding anything, means we will use the word, I feel very dull, I feel very heavy or dull. I can't understand. I have an ignorance. And many of the thinkers, when they cannot solve the problem, they will definitely point their finger in the head, not in the ribs. So why they are, during the course of, you can say, thinking, they point their finger in the head? Because of too much of Bekin, heaviness, dullness, slowness in any kind of like activities of the body, mind, speech. Even very talkative person becomes, very slow in talking. So what is the cause? What is the element which press the movement, which press the talkativeness or all these movements? So means when it is too light, we need a heaviness or the weightage to, make it slow. So that character lies with Bekin. Now then, then the qualities of 5 elements and their actions. So if I say, this is an earth element, a handful of soil, means this is absolutely wrong. Because the handful of soil, what you got from outside, has the composition of all these 5 elements. But if you really want to know what is 5 elements or the 4 elements with the characteristic, then we have to understand that normally this line is connected with medicinal kind of like things, but I have made a little change. So Sanichite Duja Numla Kam means the characteristic of so-called the element earth is heavy, stable, blunt, smooth, oily, and then dry. And its action is to make things firm. And then the physical strength. And it makes the thing compact, like assembles thing. And especially due to its heaviness, stableness, and oiliness, it cures lung disease, which has the opposite character. That is, like lightness, mobile, and then pale or absorbent or fat-free, or you can say grease-free or malnutrition. That is one of the main kind of like characters of lung. And then every earth-based material in general and medicine has more strong kind of smell. Okay. And in the same way, the water you can find has liquid, cold, heavy, blunt, oily, and flexible, and it moistens, makes the body smooth, and assembles things, you can say. And also it cures Tiba. We don't have much time, please. And then the fire element, and it has the character of hot, sharp, dry, rough, light, oily, and mobile. And it generates heat, ripens the bodily constituents, and then brightens complexion and cures back-in disease, which is opposite. And then lung. Lung means air or the lung is light, mobile, cold, rough, absorbent, or dry, and it makes the body firm and movement especially, and then it transforms the nutritional essences, and it cures back-in and Tiba diseases. And then space. Space is not the active material of body, but without space, we cannot form anything. That's why space is essential for any material to have a room. And also the hollowness, orifice, openings, and any kind of hollow thing that we have in our body are because of element. And thank you very much. And smile at least 3 times a day. For world peace. It can lead you to world peace. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dorjee. Again, this is grounded in the empiricism of medicine, and so again forms a rich database from which to build a bridge with Western biomedical sciences and neuroscience. Any quick questions from the monastic scholars?
And Tiwana you go na wala twitches. And in Tanda Tiwa the Carriers and Tanda and Amjelaji and this also. Ngatu Ning the Ketchum which is Carres at Uganata, so Nisata Ning dress. Tati in Dugala. Tajata de an imagine she is a reading Chetan and Tajik and Donganigan, Semnes at the budget, Ningi Missouri. Tene, Tatik, Yimba Yina, Tatanda Tinsang as a Karajigo, Resedukan, Ning the Jawuja Shaduganda, and at a meeting is 70 Jawuja Share, Carre, Tetology, conditional chat, Naroches, Kalenji.
Tanakam Kanamunashi. Yingni Gabu, Cesar Semkitan, Sumare. And in Ying now the Tanying Krang, the chef, Ying in all the Cesar Negi or Shakutana Karchi or Sidugane, Ying in all the that Cesar Sumare. The number she went there, solo the Java never did, Kariji or Sidugane, Shindu Tower, Tanga Chishasam. 미세세베랑 진짜 참여 초도 나와 되 가제 외거랑 진짜 인스턴 순거래 딘두간에 메슈 나로라 진짜기 네버 템바디 외거랑 신 템바디 근데 인상주 땅위네 근사의 샨드네 수 외지리기 여위나 외디 커도디 자조디게 파 아주 도솔 레위네 자조 도솔 레바 잠디 디 외대 님도 지가소래 도서 개비 결국 말해 성도 딘도 간에 세부송하래 외기랑 신송하러 와 그래서 간에 뒷변다 제시다 대한직 다 예버지는 게 쉬운도 딘도 간에 또 닝디 쉬우지 개심 임대 좀제 가서 간에 닝디 아주 남시 초주기 때 아마디야 피해기 지대 아마디 디인스 앤 디간들 템버세버 지역이 시대 아마디 닝인스요래 딘도 간에 삼삼을 닝리 교인 접도 간에 아주 같이 템벌라트에 소르데다 쉬어봐 줄도에 쓰디 메시나 요리 예배 좀제 가서네 닝을 농슈도 간에 아니 근데 지고서 간에 엔베 미쳐도 그래 저래 가서 삼삼 셈메디 용그레스 근데 용그레스 간에 닝로 도슈도 간에 닝나 농슈바 디게 고랑 신디게 농디 요베랑 신게 미디게 람사 쩨바데 교도 그레스 근데 교그레스 간에 제가 머티 바야 무조죠 제가 티자 디 레메드 민예 쓰게 가시 쉬이 뎁승거래 남주 메템버 쉐베데 닝로 쉬이도 간에 아니 미그 쩨바고 배 교도 그레스 즉 셈바이네 즉 가서기 쓰기를 비지다 파과도 아니 미디데를 파케지 쉐비나 닝로 요되게 디 파케 쉐도 간에 삼산 랭고를 경마를 쩨베 두스파 요도 그레스 다야 징가라 저 깨지 쉐기 미드서 육샤베네 양 추유는 깨샤가 용 그레스 딘두가 파과도 쳐왔을 간에 닝기 내갑디 아니 초와 니메 망망 우조고 생닝을 디쇼비나 니메 어째 깨서 망고셰 에 참상 무 참상 샤도 잡양 참상 개무게 지그리 잡아 어다 디기 남주 남상 줄드에디 요월 때 디요에 춘이디 딜마도 요마스 에 학과도 닝도 와 빼나 아스다 디산 샤주 망고지가 샤주 지두 간에 닝을 톡도 지두 간에 아니 수고 따라왔다 초왔다 세네 텐디 용그레스 섬기도 디인도 간에 So, so the heart is the base of life, the consciousness, according to Tibetan medicine. So there's a question that if we have kind of like operation, of the heart, what happens? I say the central channel, which is in the nature of a light, radiation, a very fine channel, filled with purest of the pure air, which is the base of the consciousness. So even if you, make an operation, you're just doing the operation for the organ and not the radiation, the light of the central channels. So, like for example, if I move this, because there's a light, if I move this table means I'm not moving the table along with the light. So this way, I think this kind of theory is need to be, again, researched. And then the heart, whenever we have some problems with heart, especially a lung affecting heart will definitely have a changed kind of behavior. Sometimes people, they have a little bit of hallucination, delirium, and then sometimes mentally, physically, vocally, they act in a strange way. Because all these are not the mind of the person, but the mind is affected, you can say, by lung. And this we have Yinju Buga Negi Kachitung means the channel where consciousness move has obstacles from different diseases. That's why when the channel is not kind of you can say, comfortable, if the consciousness is not comfortable in moving its own kind of channel, in that case, many people, they get problem with mind. Like we can say depression, anxiety, or even the insanity, is nothing but the channel where a respective consciousness moving is having a hindrance or obstacles by the disorder of the body.
Thank you very much.